Hello, my name is Cesar, and I'm going to be going over how to use SharpCap 4.0's folder monitoring feature to practice live stacking and histogram stretching. I will also be providing some files, so if you don't have the files, you can use these files to practice yourself. To let you know, the telescope that I used to capture these files was a Celestron 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain telescope with on a Celestron AVX equatorial mount. Using a Celestron 6.3 focal reducer fill flattener, and the camera used an ASI ZWO 294mm camera, which is a mono camera. The reason this video is focusing on mono, we'll produce a second video which will focus on the 294MC, which is a one-shot color camera. Practicing on mono is just a lot easier to do to begin with, and that's why I'm starting with this video. So even if you have a color camera, you may want to start with mono if you've been having problems with using the histogram and stretching in SharpCap. To let you know, these images or files were captured in a Bortle 6 zone, actually really close to Bortle 7, because if I move my address down a couple blocks, Clear Skies gives me a Bortle 7. You can see this is a red zone, so this is not, a nice high quality dark sky area that you're going to be stacking here. What I'm going to practice on is NGC 891, which is the Edge-on Galaxy. We have 52 6-second images, which were captured using a 300 gain. If you have questions or want more help on this, best place to go is the Cloudy Nights Electronic Assisted Astronomy EAA forum. It's a great place, very friendly. I can't rave more than enough about it. Like I said, if you got questions in general, just go there. If you have questions in particular about my video, go to Cloudy Nights, search for Save42 and find my post on this, and you can ask it on that thread, or you can send me a private message on Cloudy Nights. So if you don't have files to practice with and you want files to practice with, take this URL right here, enter this into your browser, and then download the file. I'm not going to download the file, so you can enter it here. Then if you should get a dialog or should download for you. It is a large file. It is 3/4 of a gigabyte in size, so it will take some time to download, just to warn you. I'm not going to download it in this case, like I said, because I've already have downloaded it. But after you've downloaded it, it should be in your downloads folder. I suggest then you copy it somewhere else. In this case, I'm just going to copy it over to my documents folder. This will take a second, like I said, to do. Once that is done, what you want to do is then extract it. So right click on that and then go to extract all, and then just click on extract. This will take a couple minutes to do, but then if you go inside this folder, we can start to look at some of the files being generated. So there'll be three things that you really care about. There's a dark frame that's been captured, which we will use. There's a flat frame, which we'll use. If you're not familiar with these, again, go to Cloudy Nights and you can learn more about these. I'm not going to cover these in detail in this video. And then there's the raw frame. So these are the raw fits files. So if we go in here, you can see here's the raw frames that each 6-second capture we're going to be stacking and using in SharpCap to do. Again, I will be showing how to capture your own raw frames. So when you're imaging, I highly recommend that you capture these raw frames. So this way you can practice stacking afterwards. You can practice to see how different stretching or different, maybe even different dark frames or flat frames will work. It is just a great way, and also you learn a lot more. It's a great way to learn and something to do on those cloudy nights when you can't be viewing the sky live. It lets you reenact it and see how well you could have done there. So let's see, we've got 25 seconds here left on that. So what you're going to do is start up SharpCap, and once you start up SharpCap, then we will then go on to that. So let's take a look at SharpCap next. Let's get that going. So it looks like that is just about there. So let's get SharpCap up, and so in SharpCap, what you're going to want to do is you're going to go to camera. Gonna go to camera, and then you want to select folder monitor camera. Then this will bring up, and then you want to click on browse over here in your camera controls, and then you want to navigate to the folder that you just extracted out. Go to raw frames, click on any file there, and click all fits files. So this will load up all. This was basically telling SharpCap 2, this is where we're going to be stacking here. The next thing we want to do is just set our target name, HGC891. This is normally what you do during live. When you're practicing, you don't need to do this, but I'm going to do this here. You'll understand later. So once that is done, you want to click on Live Stack. And now we're going to make sure you reset this histogram here, and also the display histogram. Make sure you reset that. I generally recommend not playing around with the display histogram. It is already, they're additive in a kind of weird way. So I just suggest if you're doing your stacking, just reset this, close the display histogram, and don't touch it again. It just complicates things more than it needs to. Once you've got that, so if you wanted to capture the actual fits files to stack later, what you would do is you go to raw frames, and we'll do save stacked. And I'm going to leave that on so you can see what happens to this, where they are located. In a sense, we're just resaving the files I've already got saved. But like I said, if you were doing this live, viewing this guide, that's what you would do, so you can get files that you could stack later. So now that we've got this all set up, make sure you've got aligned frames, and now we can start stacking. And you can see I've not applied my dark or flat. And the reason is I just want you to see you can play with applying them and not applying them and seeing what it looks like. So we're going to do it with none of those. We're going to start stacking. You can see now if you look down over here to the left-hand side, you can see we're starting to stack, and we're getting a nice little curve here. As usual, you want to wait till you get a couple of frames stacked, and once you got a couple of frames stacked, you want to click on the auto stretch, and this will give you something close to what you want to see. You can see here, now we're starting to see our galaxy, edge on galaxy here, but also what's more importantly is you can see the vignetting, the darker corners here, and you can see a nice big old dust donut there. So this is why, one of the main reasons you apply flats. If you see these dark corners, you can stack without, or you can go without it. And if you've got a small enough object, so like in this case, it's in this area here in the center, we can start to do, try to bring it out. And the way you bring it out typically is you take this black level and you put it just either at the peak or a little bit before the peak. And then you take this mid-level line, and then you can move it to the right, we'll darken the image. You'll see how we got dark there. You move it to the left, it lightens up the entire image. A lot of this now becomes preference. Do you like a lighter background, or do you like the darker background? I tend to like a light gray background. So that's what I'd be shooting for, something like light gray. But what I don't like is all this vignetting here. So we're going to apply the flats in a second. But if this, just to show you, we're capturing these raw frames, and what you can do is you can go save, when you're doing this live, you can go save exactly your scene, or even if you're doing it practicing, you can do save it exactly a scene. And SharpCap will save it. And up here, it's really nice. You can click on this here, and this will open up the folder where you are, where you just saved it. So there, there's our folder of the image we just saved. If we go up one folder, you'll see this raw frames folder, and this is all the frames it's been capturing. So this is a way. So if you were doing this live, these would be raw frames, and then you can come back and do a folder monitor and do it there, and rerun it from there. So that's something to know. I'm going to stop saving those because it doesn't make sense to save the frames that I've already stopped. I'm going to stop the stacking there. I'm going to clear this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my dark and my flat. So the dark, again, we just I gave you those are in our folder here. This is the dark one. And then we'll also then apply our flat. So now we've got darks and flats applied. We've cleared our stack. And now what you do is you push this button here to rewind and replay everything. So now we're replaying all the frames, and we can now see. So now you can now see our vignetting is gone, our donuts are gone. We've got a much, much clearer picture. We got to press play. We rewound. Now we got to press play. So now, like I said, we got a much, much clearer picture. And this is really what you're looking for. This is, like I said, again, the typical method for doing this, and the easier method that I recommend is, you put this black level somewhere near the peak, and then you move the mid-level left and right to see what you want. Often, it's good to over-exaggerate just to see what it looks like when you over-exaggerate. So if I over-exaggerate to the right, you'll see the image goes completely dark. If I over-exaggerate to the left, you see it's very, very bright. You can see it's still pretty noisy, but if we were to wait longer and longer, you would see this noise will disappear. One thing here is, as we're waiting for this to stack more, is you'll see this is getting really steep, and small changes have big effects. This is where you can use this nice feature that got added in 4.0, is the zoom feature. So if you click on the zoom button, and this took me a second to realize, is there's a little scroll bar down here. So now you kind of move over until you see the peak. So now you can see the peak, and you can now adjust it even finer. One thing to remember is, if you were then to go on to another object and start stacking on that, your zoom this peak may be somewhere else. So the first time I did this and I went to another object, I got all freaked out because I couldn't see my curve. My curve wasn't looking right, and I forgot I had the zoom. So if you go to another object, I highly recommend you uncheck the zoom before you do that. So now you can see how, now that we're zoomed in, say we really want to get the peak, closer to the peak, which is somewhere around there. Like you said, I tend to like the lighter gray or lighter background. So if I go here, you can see it's a little bit there. We go a little bit, for those of you that like darker. So here's, that's actually not too bad right there. So, and you can see one thing I like to focus on when I'm doing this, if I zoom in on this, and this is where you can check to see if you're overstretching or stretching too much, is you can see, so if I come in, you can see here's the edge of the galaxy there, and here's the edge of the galaxy here. So just past this little star here, we'll focus on this side here. So if I stretch too much to the right, you'll start to see we're starting to slowly lose that. And the more, so sometimes if you're trying to get your sky a little too dark, trying to get rid of the noise, now you're starting to lose the details there. So that's something to watch out for, is, that's something how I look at to see when I've stretched too far to the point. So this is getting a little far for me because I'm really starting to lose some detail, but some people like the darker sky, and this is up to me, now I've lost too much. So again, what we can do is bring it back to the left. I'm okay with a little bit of gray sky, and that looks really nice. That looks nice for me. And then I can do, I can go over here. I can do save exactly a scene, and we'll get that saved. And now a second way to do it, to do the stack, is actually, if I see, you'll see quite a bit of noise here. And one way of getting rid of the noise is not to move the black level so far over. And then, I'll do it somewhere on this upper curve to the left of the peak. So let's try right about here. And then if I move this over to the right, you can see how the noise level is not as bad, but I'm still keeping this up. So this is the way I as long as you're not shooting for the really dark backgrounds, this is a good method of trying to reduce some of the noise I found, and yet be able to keep the details on the sides. So that's just a second way of doing it. But again, if you're just new to all this, I would definitely just do it easy, put this near the peak, and go from there. Another great thing that this lets you do, while you're stacking live, so let's bring this over. If we go over to the Enhancement tab, you can now play around with noise reduction and sharpening to see how it does this. If you're doing this live, depending on your computer, you may have to pause your stack. I know on my computer, this is really computationally intensive, and it really slows down the stacking process. So often, and also it gets a little confusing whether the additional stack is getting the improvement versus playing around with the noise reduction or sharpening. So the good thing to do until you understand what you like is just pause the stack. You can press on pause, but since we're done with all our frames, it's already been naturally paused. And now you can play with a different noise reduction. So you can play. So let's zoom in a little bit more, because these details can be really subtle on this. And then if we press on Gaussian blur, let's take a look right here. You can see how it blurred out a little bit. Again, but what you can do is really play around these controllers, and you see, oh yeah, that got really blurry. That I don't like that. So if you're going to do a Gaussian blur, something I like to do is just a very light Gaussian blur, or you can do a bilateral blur. That just does it a different way. Again, if you play around with the controls, you can tend to get a little bit. I'll really move that quite a bit, and then you can kind of click on off to see what it looks like it without on, and then on. It seems to be pretty subtle in this one here. We can move this, again, move them really extreme to understand. This is the good part about practicing. You're not wasting time viewing the night sky. So this is a great time just to practice this and find things that you like. I tend to use the Gaussian blur if I'm going to use it. The other thing is the unsharp mask. You can play around with this. I usually don't like the unsharp mask, just the results it tends to give. You'll see, in a sense, it looks like you've added more noise. But it seems like you've added detail inside. So look right here. If I click on unsharp, you'll see how it seems to bring out detail there. So that's something really nice, but it also seems to bring out noise here. Which then you try to balance with the Gaussian blur, then you lose the detail that you got there. So it's always kind of a weird thing. It's a matter of what you're looking for. And again, this is all subjective to what you like. Or you can go over here, try this one here, and see what it does. So again, this is all great to practice. So that's all really good. And then, once you've got something again that you come back over here. So let's say we like the Gaussian blur here. Let's do a little bit more aggressive on that blur. And then, then I can save exactly a scene, and then, I can see how these compare to each other. Another thing to do that's really nice is because this is all live stack, you can start the stack all over again. And if you want to play around with the FWHM filter or the brightness filter, these are, if you really want to see how those work, so you can restart the whole stack, set these filters up. This is a great time to practice all this thing. Another thing to practice is capturing your flats or darks. Something I've done is to try to see, my camera is uncooled, so I've tried different darks and see how far away do I need to be from the temperature in order for my darks to be good enough. So that's something good. Or if you've got, there's different methods of capturing flats. Some people say you need to have them a couple seconds long. Some say you just got to have the gain around 200 or 300. You can try different ways. Try your different stacks here and see which one you like. I found, I found a method I liked for me just because it was simple. So again, this is a really nice way to just be able to practice things, get your stretching, understand how the stretching works, understand how all the other little parts work, and really good way. Again, if you have any questions and you need any help, here's where you can go for help. All right, thank you.